Hello and welcome to Centenary News. I'm Ashley Godwin and with me today is Diana Preston, author of the book A Higher Form of Killing, 6 Weeks in World War I that forever changed the nature of warfare. Hi Diana, welcome.
Thank you, it's a great pleasure to be with you.
The first event covered in your book was the first use of chlorine gas on the Western Front in April 1915. But obviously by that point the war had been going on for quite a few months. Why did Germany choose to use it at that point?
The reason that Germany, or her High Command, decided to turn to poison gas was that by the end of 1914 you have effectively stalemate on the Western Front. The whole German war plan had been predicated on a very swift advance through Belgium into France to the Channel ports, but that had been stalled. So by the end of 1914 you have a line of trenches stretching some 450 miles all the way from Switzerland to the North Sea. So at this stage the German military started to turn its attention to ways of unblocking that stalemate. One of the solutions appeared to them to be using chemical warfare, and it was at that point that they decided to involve their scientists, and in particular a man called Fritz Haber, a leading German chemist. And he considered the problem that had been put to him and his fellow scientists, and it was he who recommended the use of chlorine gas. He believed that would be effective on the battlefield. And so you have a situation where on 22nd of April 1915, German scientists and technicians released the valves on steel canisters of chlorine gas, and a great billowing, bilious yellow cloud began to roll over the landscape towards these French and Canadian troops in what was the world's first poison gas attack.
The Lusitania was sunk by a torpedo from a German U-boat in early May. This has always been controversial. Can you pick some of the controversy for us?
We have to remember what an iconic ship the Cunard liner Lusitania was in May 1915. The only major Cunard liner still making the transatlantic run, a very familiar sight in both New York and a home port of Liverpool, had been identified by the German Navy as a target for Germany's submarines. I think what Germany had never anticipated was that when the Lusitania was successfully torpedoed and sunk on the 7th of May 1915, what an enormous worldwide reaction there would be. All around the world you have this enormous chorus of condemnation from neutral countries, and in particular the United States, who had lost 128 citizens on the Lusitania. Because of that condemnation, you find that Germany started to make counter-accusations about the Lusitania, saying that she was not all that she had appeared, that she had been much more than just a simple passenger liner. Germany alleged that she had been armed, i.e. she had had guns mounted on her deck, that she had been carrying significant amounts of troops to the Western Front, that she had had large amounts of war material, munitions in her hold. And even above that, Germany started to say that Winston Churchill, at the time First Lord of the Admiralty's professional head, and Admiral Jackie Fisher, the first Sea Lord, that they had deliberately hazarded the Lusitania in a cynical ploy to lure the United States of America into the war. And I think it's from that period that you start to see some of the many controversies and stories spinning out about the Lusitania.
For your third topic, you focused on the Zeppelin raids over London in late May. Why did you choose to focus on this rather than the earlier raids on East Anglia and South East England, for example?
I think one of the things we have to remember is that this whole business of trying to unlock the stalemate on the Western Front, Germany at this time was turning to different methods, to new and relatively untested technologies. So the range, the effectiveness of the Zeppelin airship in the early stages of 1915 was very uncertain. So what Germany wanted to do was to see what use it could make of Zeppelins, how far they could go, how effective they could be in dropping bombs on both strategic areas, but later on civilian areas too. That starts to come into the German thinking. So the idea was to conduct a series of probing raids in the early months and weeks of 1915, which I detail in the book. As soon as the German military were confident that a Zeppelin could reach London, that became the desired target. Now there had to be a debate about this. The Kaiser, whose relations, of course, with the British royal family, his cousins, were somewhat equivocal, was a little squeamish about the idea of bombing a city of which he was very fond, which he had fond memories, and also bombing his relations in their palaces. So the High Command had quite a debate with the Kaiser for some weeks as to which parts of London could be attacked. But eventually he gave his consent, and so you have on the 31st of May the first bombing of the capital, but chosen as a target by the military to create a profound psychological impression.
The subtitle of your book talks about warfare, the nature of warfare being changed forever. Why was it that these events together were so significant?
I think when you take the three events together, poison gas, then the sinking of the Lusitania, then the first aerial attack on London, all happening within that very narrow envelope of time, it shows us technology being increasingly harnessed to kill ever larger numbers of people ever more remotely, a sort of disconnect, if you like. You see civilians becoming regarded as a legitimate target in warfare. You see the beginning, I believe, of what we today would recognise as weapons of mass destruction. I can think of no other weapon which at this stage, when we're talking about spring 1915, had killed more people than, or more civilians than the single torpedo which was launched at the Lusitania on the 7th of May.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.